Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Omomi, aka Petite Diva, and this video is inspired by a particular question that a creator asked married people.
Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard? Because I have been hearing this for so long, especially from straight couples. Gay couples, stitch this. Gay married couples, let me know. But I've been hearing this so much of like marriage is hard, and I'm not married, so I can't speak on that. But I have been in a long-term relationship with my fiance. We've been together for 6 years. And in 6 years, especially in the past year, there's been a lot of heavy stuff that we've gone through individually and collectively. Like over the past 6 years, like obviously life happens. But throughout the hard stuff, I've never felt like the relationship was the hard part, if that makes sense. Like, there's been hard stuff that we've had to go through and navigate. Again, especially in the past year has been a lot. But like, there's no one else that I would want to be going through that with than my fiance. And we're also aware of the fact that like we don't have kids, and like I'm sure that kids are another layer to adding stress or like just a whole other world to navigate. But yeah, married couples, I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Now, this creator was asking married people what they mean by marriage is hard. So the creator was talking about her own relationship and how she has been in a long-term relationship, and even though they've had challenges individually and collectively, she doesn't feel like the relationship itself is hard. So she wanted to know what married people exactly mean by marriage is hard. And quite a lot of people replied her. Like, there are so many stitches to the video that is, I would say they're like 50 or 100. Anyway, let's check out what people had to say in reply to our question.
Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard? Explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. This and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
What? I can't hear you. That's why it's hard. It's nothing but your spouse trying to talk to you from a different room and you can't hear anything.
Stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. By marriage is hard.
So before I give you my answer, I think the reason that this is such a good and confusing question is because the phrase marriage is hard has at least two distinct and almost entirely opposed meanings. Because when you say marriage is hard, you either mean marriage is hard like hitting a baseball is hard, or marriage is hard like calculus is hard. You can insert your own examples here, these are just mine. So if I were to say marriage is hard, I would be saying it's hard like hitting a baseball is hard, because it requires dedication and discipline and effort and time, a willingness to receive feedback, to put your ego aside. And also a recognition that, like, you are going to swing and miss repeatedly, and you got to be able to just pull yourself back together and try again. And you do that not because it's easy, but because it's rewarding and it's satisfying, and it makes you and it makes your team happy when you succeed. And I say this not as somebody who's a particularly great baseball player. I stopped playing when I was 20 years old. I played in a college summer league and I hit 200, but as somebody who continues playing recreationally with the same group of people for years on end because I love it. You know, calculus also requires time and effort and practice and blah, 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 blah. But it is a chore. It is torturous. And I only do it out of obligation or because it's transactional in some way. I'm willing to do something that I hate so that I can get something that I want. So when someone says that marriage is hard, I think it is important that we know which kind of hard they mean. Hard like hitting a baseball or hard like calculus, because there is a world of difference between the two.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
It's literally right there.
And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
When they say that, it means they're married to a man. That's literally it. When somebody says marriage is hard, it's because I married a man. All right, see ya.
Explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. Stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
The other day I sent my husband a bunch of TikToks, as one does, and he sent them all back to me because he didn't realize he was going through our message thread and he thought it was his FYP.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
Licensed medical marriage therapist here. A lot of the couples that I help work through their marriages come to me with this issue. The men want to be small bean and they don't want to keep being big man, and the woman wants to continue to be small bean, but they can't figure out a way to communicate how to be just small bean together.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me? Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard?
Okay, so I considered not responding to this because there are a lot of people in the comments saying things like, marriage shouldn't be hard. If marriage is hard, you're with the wrong person. And those comments have a lot of likes. But I disagree. I think having a good marriage is hard. I don't mean like fidelity. I don't mean like loving your partner. Those are easy. Right? I can love my partner with all of my heart without trying. That just happens. What I mean by hard, though, is that when you're with another person forever and they're changing, there's work you need to do to make sure their life is better. And that's hard. Right? I spend a considerable amount of mental energy thinking about what I can do to make the life of my wife better. And that work is worth it because my life is better with her. Right? The hardships we've been through together were easier because we were together. And maybe I'm like reading those comments wrong and that's not what they meant, but I feel like not all hard is bad. Right? Sometimes it can mean you're working for something even better. And if I personally, for me, in my lived experience, ever feel like marriage is easy, I'm going to wonder why I stopped trying as hard as I used to.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
Marriage is hard because of growth. Growth into each other, growth into yourself, and growth into life. And in each area of growth, you have to allow each other space to grow while also not growing apart. You have to be patient with growth because you may not grow at the same speed. You have to be kind to growth to let it know that it's welcome. can't be envious of your partner's growth. You can't boast or be too proud about your own growth. And your own growth can't be too self-seeking. You can't be angered by the process of growth. You can't keep a record of the mistakes that growth makes. You can't delight in its failures, nor can you rejoice too much in its success. You have to hope and pray that growth will happen, and you have to persevere through that growth. And that is what makes marriage hard.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
It's funny because we were just watching that Netflix documentary on Ashley Madison. That's what they were saying. Marriage is hard. Loving or staying in love is hard. We look at each other like, what the hell are they talking about? No, it's not. If you're married to the right person. Because my wife is my absolute best friend. Without a doubt. She is 100% my ride or die. This girl would jump in front of a train, bullet, car. It don't matter. And I would do the same for her. So those of you who say marriage is hard and consider little things like not putting your shoes up where they go or shit like that, that is not the definition of hard. Marriage is hard if you're married to the wrong person. Other than that, marriage is not hard. I love being married. I think it's the best thing ever. I tell you what is hard though sometimes. Them damn kids. There's some, for those that have them, we know. You know what they say about them kids. But I love my babies. I did not want any kids. I knew for certain I didn't want kids until I married this woman. Until I met this woman, actually. Then I was like, you know what? This woman's so good that she deserves to be a mom. And the world needs more moms as good as this woman. And it would be cruel to the world to not make her a mother, because the kids that she is going to help raise are going to be raised by the greatest person that I've ever known. So yeah, marriage isn't hard. It's hard if you're married to the wrong one.
And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
Hello,
Hi, I'm Jess.
I'm Skylar.
We're married.
Yep.
We've been married for almost 5 years.
And we wanted to comment on this. Marriage is hard. It is. But it's the type of hard. It is hard work.
Mm-hmm. It's not bad hard. It just is hard. It's challenging. It takes a lot of work. I am autistic.
And I have ADHD.
And we are not great at communicating.
And we've been abused. And so for her, there's like a bluntness that I don't really understand, because I was around a narcissist my entire childhood. And I have ADHD. And I think that I explain the point to death. And so it seems like that might be point of contentions in our relationship. So we have to constantly try to like redo the Rubik's Cube to see eye to eye.
Well, yeah, also our neurodivergencies directly kind of clash. Mm-hmm. Like my specific things that trigger meltdowns are things that like don't really bother you or you don't really care about. And your things that cause burnout are things that are important to me, that it's just hard to find a balance.
And
that makes everybody happy and feel seen and heard and then you add kids into the mix, and
yeah, and it's a splitting of time that you already felt like you're not very good at delving. And the thing is, some people will say like, oh, find someone who's more this, find someone who's more that. And I think once you find your best friend and the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, like, you just want to make it work because they're your bud. Like, I think that
even if it's hard,
I think this is the best thing that has pushed me to become the best version of myself, and I am better because of it. But it doesn't mean that it's like easy. It's difficult, but it's fun.
Well, I also think there's a sentiment that people talk about is like, well, marriage isn't hard if you're with the right person. And I think, I don't mean, again, blunt, that's a very privileged take, I think, or very neurotypical untrauma take. We both have gone through a lifetime of trauma and both have brains that work differently from most people and also from each other, and that makes things complicated and difficult to communicate and difficult to understand, and that's not a bad thing, but it's not easy, and that's okay. And we still love each other, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think find someone that pushes you and find someone that you can let break down your walls, because that person is going to help you grow and vice versa. And I think that is the person that you should spend your life with. And if you can't find someone like that, that is the part that I think is hard. If you aren't willing to grow with your partner, and I think that might be what people are talking about. But yeah, marriage is hard work, marriage is fun, marriage is exciting, and maybe try it sometime.
Explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard, because I have been here. Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
Being asked every day for the rest of your life, what's for dinner?
Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
You have to pick stuff to eat. You have to pick a thing for you both to eat. Every day. Multiple times a day. Every day for the rest of your life. It's relentless. You're constantly in a state of needing to figure out what to eat. And sometimes it's a restaurant, which seems great because you can eat different things, but you have to pick the same restaurant. You have to figure out a restaurant that's open, that you both like, you haven't gone to recently, it's not too expensive. Sometimes you're home. You gotta cook. I do most of the cooking, and you have to pick recipes that you both are willing to eat, but that also isn't too much work. And you have to get groceries. And then if you figure out that meal and you make the meal and you eat the meal, and you're like, oh, this is so awesome. And then that moment is fleeting because right after that, congratulations, now you have to do dishes. And I know single people eat. I get that. But when we are like temporarily single, when one of us is on vacation or whatever, the other person reverts to being a trash goblin. Like I eat over this. Last time she was gone, I was eating over the sink. I swallowed a whole rack of Thin Mints in one go like a snake. I wouldn't do that when she's here, you know? Like, it's different when you have to eat in front of somebody else. There has to be a plate. There has to be a meal time. When people say marriage is hard, that's what we're talking about.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
It's the children. The children make it hard. They make it hard. I don't care how much you love and care about somebody. When you have the almost constant added pressure of like small humans demanding your attention and time and energy, it is hard to be a good, kind, patient, loving, attentive partner. It's just hard. That doesn't mean parenting isn't worth it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have kids. Doesn't mean I hate having kids. I am just saying, when you have kids, it drastically reduces your ability to be an attentive and engaging partner. It's just hard. And then everybody's tired. Everybody's frustrated. It's just harder. Now, there are some people who are married and have kids and they have no problem. I don't. They're superheroes. I don't know how they do it. But people who are saying marriage is hard, they 99% of the time have kids making it harder. Like, that's what it is. That's what it is. It's the children. And we love them. And we're happy we have them. But your marriage is going to be harder with them. Like, one example, I come home at the end of the day and we're having dinner and my kids are at an age where they are constantly bickering. And my wife asked me one day, she's like, gosh, I just feel like, at dinner time when you're home, like you're just not in a good mood. I'm like, how can I be in a good mood? I was like, it has nothing to do with you. You are great. You are incredible. But when I have to shout over children fighting in order to have a conversation with you, I just choose not to have a conversation with you. And it has nothing to do with how much I love or care about her. It is the environment of chaos that kids bring. So that's just one of the thousands of ways that kids make it more difficult to have a good, solid, strong, loving marriage. And now there's some trauma bonding that happens that brings you closer together as well. And having kids, I think, is worth it. I think it's made me more mature. I think it's made me less selfish. I think it's great. But if you're asking why marriage is hard or why we're saying that, it's the children that are doing it to us.
Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to
So I've been married for 10 years. Those are my credentials, so I can confidently say this. Marriage is not hard. Outside extenuating circumstances are hard. The things that we go through in marriage are hard. The marriage itself is not hard. It is not hard to be married to my husband because we like each other, number one. We are on the same page. And so everything that happens to us happens to us. It doesn't happen to me, doesn't happen to him, happens to us. Anything outside of our marriage that affects us affects both of us together. So we fight against the things outside of our marriage. We don't fight against each other. So that makes marriage easy because we're always on the same page. We're on the same team. Okay? Our morals and values align. We agree that everything outside of our marriage is not going to shake us because we have a strong foundation of friendship, love, trust, communication. So don't get to us like that. Now, does life suck? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. But that's life. And that's going to affect anybody, whether you're married or not. It just matters who you're married to know whether or not it's going to affect y'all. So, finances, family, kids, jobs, careers, deaths, all of the things that happen in life, they are hard. There are hard things to deal with. The marriage itself is Gucci because we got each other no matter what, till death do us part, through sickness and in health. Period.
And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
I don't know exactly how to say this, but you all need to grow up. None of these videos of how marriage is hard are showing how marriage is hard. Oh no, I left my shoes next to the shoe rack, or she didn't cover the butter, or there's a Doritos bag that they left out. They ran out of toilet paper and didn't replace the toilet paper? Marriage is so hard. I can never even figure out what we're going to eat for dinner tonight. Knock it off. Grow up. None of those reasons is why marriage is hard. All of those reasons are why having a roommate is hard. My college roommate did the same thing. He left his cereal bowls out on the counter. He left cabinets open. He never replaced the toilet roll. Who cares? That's what roommates do. You guys have a problem with your roommate, not with your marriage. See, marriage is hard, not because people didn't follow your rules or didn't keep things neat the way you wanted them to. Marriage is hard because even when they do all of those things, You have to decide how to love that person who bothered you. So you can hate your roommate when they don't do what you want, but if you've married that person, you've got to find a way around that feeling that you're having with these videos. No, it is not about putting things away or living an organized, picked up life. Marriage is so much harder than that. You're looking for a way to be in the worst mood of your life that day. Come home, see something that even makes you more upset, and then realize, I've got to be a team with this person. We've got to raise our kids. We've got to make this work. And you got to find a way to be who you are and be there for that person and find a way to tell them, I need you to be there for me. That is hard. Real, deep marriage communication and relationship building is hard. Emptying the dishwasher, that's easy. Opening the dishwasher, seeing that it's full, so what? Literally, grow up. If this person wants to find out, what do you mean by marriage is hard? Take the list of videos that every single person has made here, put it all in one giant pile, and then, after that, say, and now what? And how do I love this person because of this? How do I love myself, even though I've been bad, evil, wrong? I've been someone this person is upset with. How do we move together to become better? Marriage, 2-1 whole thing here. How do we actually become a unit that makes sense? That is so much harder than putting the chip clip on the bag or putting your stuff away in the closet. Jeez, there's so many garbage videos about why marriage is hard. So I'll tell you what, all of you people out there who are showing me those videos about why marriage is hard, if that's the worst thing in your marriage, that the shoes aren't going on the rack, that the door is left open, that the toilet paper roll isn't changed, congratulations. You've got a blessed marriage.
Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
I love this question. It's something that I actually talked to my husband about at the beginning of our relationship, and I think I had sort of a skewed idea of what love should be because of media and some toxic relationships that I had been in the past, and it was really like fight or flight or like fight or fuck. I don't know what you would really call it. But generally, I think that our generations, I actually don't know how old you are, we have treated marriage differently than past generations. We cohabitate a lot longer. So some people that say that marriage is hard honestly just didn't live together first. So they're like working out that roommate shit when you have other things to worry about. That's a year one problem. You know what I mean? But to properly answer this question in my husband's words, because I like how he puts words together, I am going to steal from his vows. And please excuse me if I cry. I like him or whatever. Don't be gross. Okay. I didn't sit back and take inventory of your qualities and say, this one ticks all the boxes, done. I was drawn to you and profoundly lucky that you were drawn to me. And we started something that we still work on every day, that gets deeper and wrinklier every day. I hope that doesn't sound unromantic, calling it work. I don't mean work like drudgery, an early morning commute, and stale coffee and watching the clock. I mean work the way artists talk about paintings, as vital and prioritized. It's the most important work of my life, our partnership, and I cherish it. Also, to be clear, I am hopelessly in love with you. That helps. I am, on a daily basis, completely knocked over by the person in front of me. This kitchen dancing, ABBA humming, tie-dye party throwing camp counselor that I get to spend my life with. It's just that life is long, and I know that loving well is a thing you do, not a lottery you win. Oof, gets me every time. That's all to say, I think that a lot of people think of effort and work as a bad thing. It doesn't mean that it's difficult hard. It means that it's challenging hard because life is challenging. But the person that you're with, the person that you marry, should make all of life a little bit easier. I love my husband so much. It's so gross to say that on the internet, I guess. Like, air my business this way. But I was never loved like that before. And so having someone that puts in work and effort all the time to make me feel loved is a gift.
This, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
My husband booked us a trip to Florida, but he booked cheap flights, didn't even use any of our Sky Miles, and we can't check it back without having to pay. He booked a hotel room in the wrong area, and then he booked a car, but he actually never booked the car, so when we got here, we just had to pay whatever the price was to book a car, because he never really booked the rental.
Explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Ditch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. And please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
Speaking as a married man, a straight man to a woman, going on over 6 years now, marriage is not hard. Sometimes relationships can be. Marriage, the construct, is not hard. What makes relationships hard is lack of communication. That's where 99% of all of our issues in our relationship stem from. Either neither one of us are communicating with each other, or one of us isn't communicating with the other one.
Are you calling me an issue?
Yes.
I'm gonna give you some issues.
You're not afraid.
I'm gonna give you some issues. Or
some tissues.
Some tissues.
Thank you.
Please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard. Married, stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage.
Why?
Stitch this, and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard.
Okay, but this is actually a really great question that I had before I got married. I remember having a conversation with my mother-in-law, who has been married to my husband's father for over 40 years. And she kind of just quickly made a comment one day where she said, you know, marriage is not for wimps. And this was when my husband and I were engaged. And for reference, we've been married about 5 years now. I was 33 and he was 37 when we got married. It was a first marriage for both of us. Neither one of us had kids. We do not have kids now. We had both been living independently. We had had relationships that had been several years long prior to meeting each other. So we had experience. We were both financially stable in our own rights. So you would think like this is going to be really simple. Like neither one of us really has a lot of baggage. But marriage does this thing to you where it forces you to look deeper constantly. It is so easy to get complacent. It is so easy to just sit back and let your spouse be the one who does this thing every day, and you do this thing every day, like for around the house. It's like a full-time job, like a 24/7 job. and for one of you to feel kind of bitter about something. And maybe you don't say, hey, I want help with this thing, and they don't know how to articulate to you the things that they want. Both of you will end up unearthing these like deep wounds from childhood, unresolved frustrations, angers, memories, ways of thinking that are not healthy. It takes time to unearth all of those things, and unless you both are committed to fixing those things, and you're like gonna work on them together, it's almost impossible. A year into our marriage, we started having these kind of issues surface. We went to a couples counselor for about 6 months, and that was very helpful and helped us both look inward kind of at our own issues. Like, we very quickly realized my husband needed to kind of get his own therapist, and I needed to revisit therapy. So after couples therapy, we've just been independently doing therapy on our own. And it's remarkable when when your partner has a breakthrough in therapy and they come back to you and they say, hey, you know, this thing that I do all the time and it's so frustrating and hard. Like, I realize that I'm feeling this way because I've had this like attitude since childhood. This was what was kind of ingrained in me. And you feel pride for your partner that they've like worked through this. But then putting it into practice is really hard because you have to relearn old habit, or you have to retrain yourself to get out of these old habits. And on top of that, you're not always successful. And while you're waiting for your partner to kind of improve in an area, or they're waiting for you to improve in an area, like, it requires the other person to be like incredibly patient. I have not changed so much as a person. The only thing in my life that has forced me to become a better person is being married to my husband.
Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me what you mean by marriage is hard? Can people who are married stitch this and please explain to me?
The reason that marriage is hard is because as a society, we have come to expect and accept that marriage is hard. The reason that that pressure is placed on marriage is because marriage is the one thing in society where you are not allowed to make a mistake. You are not allowed to get married to somebody and then change your mind. And that pressure that we put on marriage is what makes it hard. Which brings us back to the people that say marriage isn't hard when you marry the right person. What if you don't marry the right person? Tough. You gotta stick it out. Marriage is hard. When that's not the case, marriage is not hard. Relationships are hard. Love is hard. Life is hard. But the institution of marriage shouldn't be hard. So I've been married 3 times, and I used to be very shameful of saying that. I'm in my 3rd marriage. I'm not divorced 3 times. I've been divorced twice. And, you know, it's, why should me saying that I've been divorced twice be any worse than saying I've had 2 long-term relationships and they both didn't work out? One is acceptable and one is not acceptable. And that pressure is, and shame that you're supposed to feel when you get divorced, is what makes people stay in marriages where they are describing them as being hard. My marriage now is not hard at all. It's amazing. But we're constantly working. So it's not that it's easy, it's just work, and we find value in that work. I hope that all made sense. It made sense in my brain, but that's my opinion on why I think people say that marriage is hard.
Now, so many people replied with visual representation of why marriage is hard. They were just showing some of the little things that their spouses do that can irritate them and frustrate them. Some actually talked about the fact that you have to, that 2 people are growing in a relationship, and sometimes you have to wait for someone to catch up with you, and you have to put effort into the marriage. And it's not something that is easy, because you have to consider the other person, you have to be disciplined, you have to put in the effort, you have to communicate properly. You have to have a line of communication that is not going to be broken, and you have to be determined that your marriage will work. Another person was saying that marriage being hard is a good thing, that you have to put in the effort for it to work, and if putting the effort is going to make it work, that is a good thing that it's hard. Now, personally, I'm not married, but some of the things that some people were showing was giving me like, oh no, which is one of the things that I consider when I think of marriage, because there are so many things that they showed that they're little things, but if you repeatedly do it, it can irritate me, and I don't understand. Sometimes you have to let go of those little things, but sometimes it can be very irritating. What if you're not in a good mood and you're just like, oh my god, this is just nonsense, and you just spark before you now remember, okay, this is just a little thing, let me just let it go. But you've already gone from A to Z before you remind yourself that, okay, this is a little thing that I just need to let go. Now, the lady that showed herself while we could hear her spouse snoring, I felt it for her, because personally, I'm someone that unless I'm tired, or I take something to sleep, I'm easily awoken by things. And someone snoring at my side would disturb my sleep. This is not a case of I'm imagining it. I used to sleep with my mother, and she used to snore. So many times while I'm sleeping, I would have to like tap her or nudge her and tell her to sleep on her side, because when she sleeps on her side, she snores less. But I had to be doing it frequently, and it used to disrupt my sleep. Now, I have a video where we discussed sleep divorce. If you don't know what sleep divorce is, it's people that are married deciding to sleep in separate rooms, largely because maybe their husband or their wife used to snore or kick or roll on the bed or something, or their sleeping pattern is different. So there I talked about the fact that I am all for 2 separate bedrooms. I'm all for sleeping in different places, so that I can have a full night rest without disturbance. So I really felt that for her. The other people showing tissue roll, their spouse putting their dirty clothes on the floor and not in the basket, that would irritate me. It's not how I want to be shouting at someone that, please put it inside the laundry basket, please put it, there's no how. But those things are not really things that you cannot walk around. But anyway, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not married, so I can't really I can't really say so much about why marriage is hard. But one of the things that one of them said about growing together and waiting for the other person to grow, that's something that I think about, because I'm like, yes, you're not going to be stagnant. The way that the way that you start the marriage is not the way that you're going to be 10 years into, 5 years into, 2 years into, and you're going to grow. That's why they say when you're marrying, always check your principles align, and hopefully you will not stray from it. Now, the thing I think about is, what if one person grows to be a better person, and the other person doesn't really grow, and you see the person staring to another path, and you're like, this is not the way we used to talk about things, this is not the way we used to think about things. What do you do there? That is my question. What do you do? I think about that a lot, because you can have similar goals, similar dreams, similar plans, but people can change. What if they change drastically and you're like, you can't recognize the person? What happens? And that's something I think about. But anyway, I don't know what you guys think about this whole topic. If you are married, what are the things that make your marriage, make you feel like marriage is hard? And if you're single, was there anything in this video that made you go, ooh, I don't think I can stand that. I don't think I'll be able to cope with that for a long time. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to read your comments. So please leave your comments in the comment section so that we can get this discussion popping. Now, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are not yet subscribed and you like videos such as this, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red button that says subscribe. And don't forget to click on the bell notification icon by the site so that you're notified anytime I upload videos. And now, with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.